Hello and welcome to Radio Free Nintendo. I'm James Jones. I'm joined today by Mr. Guillaume Vayette.
Hello.
Mr. John Lindemann.
Great to be here, James.
Mr. Greg Leahy.
Ahoy, ahoy, everyone.
And my voice popped there for some reason. I don't know what that was about. Like I was trying to be too subtle, and it's like, it's gonna just gonna give you a little pop to make up for that. So it's July 13th, correct? Yes. 2023, and this is episode 831. And we're gonna go ahead and get. I didn't ask these guys what they have for new business, so this is gonna be interesting. I'm just gonna play it by ear because I know at least to a certain degree what Guillaume has. Guillaume, what have you been playing?
Do you?
Well,
I was gonna go in a new direction, I guess.
I know what I've seen you're playing, so that maybe there's stuff I'm missing. So surprise me.
Oh, okay. So maybe you saw me play Mario Kart?
I saw some of that, yeah.
Yeah, but I think we didn't discuss this. Greg, have you played Mario Kart?
I've done my usual run through 200cc,
Okay.
the 2 cups, yeah.
All right. Well, I guess we can talk about that, but I've only played it through it once. So I don't, I didn't really get much of a feel yet for what the tracks are. So now I need to look up
you got your sort of 3 tour tracks, was Athens and Vancouver and LA, and then you've got the new track, the bathroom one, and then you got some of your returning tracks like the Cooper one from Mario Kart Wii with the kind of water slidey bit. You've got the moonlit highway one from Wii as well, and then the Daisy Cruiser.
Yeah, it's weird how the Wii tracks have not stuck in my mind at all. I was playing them and I didn't really recognize them.
I would say for me, the Cooper one was something that stuck in my mind more. I quite like that one from back on Mario Kart Wii. I mean, I guess there's a little difference where I reviewed Mario Kart Wii because it came out in Europe first. So it's really weird to think about that now. Like, how is that not a simultaneous release? Fucking Mario Kart is sold as many units as any game, basically, if you leave Wii Sports out of it, I think, on the whole system. Pretty much, so it's pretty similar, I guess, that and New Super Mario Brothers Wii both sold about 30 mil or something, but yeah, it is strange, but, so I probably do remember that game better than, you for that reason, if nothing else. But that track I quite liked. It was nice to see it come back, and they've put a bit of, anti-grav stuff in there, nothing too, drastically modified, but, it's still a good track, and especially putting in 200cc gives it this kind of extra intensity that I think works quite nicely with it. The Moonview Highway or whatever it is that one's more forgettable because it kind of blends together with various other tracks that are already in Mario Kart 8, because, obviously you have other kind of nighttime highway tracks, but it's also kind of like a little bit of a successor to the daytime Shroom Ridge DS track that got remade already in a previous wave of this Booster Pass DLC. So, there's a bunch of reasons why that could kind of blend into it. It's an okay track, but especially when it's, because there are so many tracks now in this game and you kind of have other ones that do a similar thing, that one could kind of just pass by without too much notice.
Yeah, my comments on it are pretty kind of scattered, I haven't had time to really, think of really much to say except that Karen's first comment upon saying Athens Dash is there are a lot of columns. And I was like, well, yeah. And then there are a lot of columns, in the way. And that just really, you're right. This might not be a good idea to set a course in Athens. Someone just got, I think, raised the ire of the entire, the Vatican and Italy for, just chiseling, I Love Lucy or something, in the Colosseum, or his name plus her name or something. So I don't know. I think this may be a bad idea. Similarly, a bad idea. No, wait. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. As I said, I'm a little bit scattered. Another thing that I thought was that Daisy Cruiser kind of hits different after you've seen the movie Triangle of Sadness.
I've not seen that.
You're going to need to explain that.
Well,
Yes.
You could just go look up the trailer and you'll understand exactly what I mean. Because there are extended scenes on a cruise ship, and the tables in the dining hall that go back and forth as they're swaying because of the sea.
I assume that was at the heart of it, with the item boxes kind of also, kind of drift across your path and stuff. It feels pretty faithful to, because it came back in Mario Kart 7, I believe. Which, obviously, while it's like one installment ago, kind of, was a long time ago in itself. Like, that was 11 years ago, but I don't think they changed much to that treatment of it. How different that was from the GameCube one, I can't even remember. It's too long now. I think, like, the main thing I remember with the 3DS one is just the idea of, like, they kind of, worked in the whole 3DS thing of, you could go underwater now with that, like, kind of hatch that's there, like, and you could kind of go below the track and into an underwater section like that. That's the main thing I remember thinking about it, playing it in Mario Kart 7, if any of this is even vaguely accurate at all, because it does all kind of blend together at a certain point, but yeah, it's a pretty decent track. I'm happy enough to see that come back.
Yeah, squeaky clean sprint. It's very cute. Like you see lots of bath stuff. Items. But gigantic. It kind of. Someone at some point in the Discord mentioned, like, when is Pikmin getting into Mario Kart? And this would have been a good time for it. And this level seems like it would be perfectly suited for Pikmin. So, like now in hindsight, it's kind of strange that it's not Pikmin themed,
Yeah, they said they've touched on this before with the whole, I think that we mentioned after the Nintendo Direct, this kind of almost Micro Machines kind of, take on Mario Kart, where, we're just down to the, they're like toy car sized in a, children's playroom for, previous DLC. I think the Wii U DLC kind of, adaptation of a GBA track, and now we've got this. So it's like a thing, that they've done before that they might have thought, like, that could, like, work into a Pikmin crossover, but it hasn't happened. So yeah, it kind of is like the big new track, kind of the way that the Yoshi's Island track was the big new one of the last two cups, the last wave, but I wouldn't say it quite has that impact, I don't know whether it's quite as interesting, but it's got, cute touches, and it's kind of, seems to be a fairly kind of, decent, design, the way you kind of go down through the plug hole, kind of, for that kind of, underwater tunnel a bit, sort of, harking it back to, again, things that started to be introduced in Mario Kart 7 and stuff. I think it's, solid enough based on the, few, I haven't played it that many times myself, there's a couple really, but, a reasonable enough thing. The thing that this is the most me observation, and it's very self-indulgent, but I'm going to mention it. When you start the track, there is a clock that shows that it's 10:10 a.m. And there is a scene in Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me when that basically starts with Kyle MacLachlan saying, "Gordon, it's 10:10 a.m. I told you about this because of the dream I had, and I'm worried about this time." And then what unfolds after that is one of the most memorable bits of Lynch batshittery that he's ever committed to film. So I was mildly disappointed once I started the race that David Bowie did not show up and then say, "Oh, we're not going to talk about Judy. We're not going to talk about Judy at all," and then just disappear. It's mental, and the track just could not live up to that, but it's fine.
Look, I mean, David Bowie was in the fucking Nomad Soul. This would be a dramatic improvement over anything he's ever been in.
I said you've seen some reasonable films other than Firewalk with Me, but yeah, that game is that the David Cage thing?
Yeah, aka Omicron, the Nomad Soul.
I think that's the name I'm more familiar with it. But yeah,
this is a truly fucking awful video game.
It's kind of somewhat infamous based on what I've heard of it.
When around the time that David Bowie died, I guess what's their name? That company that made it.
It would have been
Cage.
Quantic Dreams.
Right. I think they were giving away Omicron. Or someone
haven't they hurt this man enough?
Yeah,
I guess.
Really. Stop tarnishing his legacy.
We're going to drag his name through the mud.
Anyway, I do have a copy untouched.
That's the best state for it.
It's because it's enshrined.
The squeaky clean sprint, one thing that happened also is that Karen kind of didn't really immediately understand that you could go down the drain in the bathtub and started go around it and was confused when she was like fished out of wherever she was going. And that's one thing that I've noticed about this track and also Athens Dash and probably a few more tracks. It's that they're very twisty and they can be kind of confusing. I think that Athens Dash, like, it's going to take me several times before I actually get used to where you're supposed to go.
Well, the thing with the tour tracks as well is, some of this has kind of made its way into like some of the retro tracks that have been remade, like this kind of philosophy of like having a different route through a track, like per lap and stuff.
That's definitely a factor, but there's also the fact that often, like, the road that they're making you drive on, like, clearly, like, turns to the right, but they will make it deviate to the left to some other place. But, like, if you're it kind of messes with you reading the track, you know? Like, it looks like a place where I'm gonna have to turn right. No, wait, shit.
Yeah, they do some, like, very conspicuous, like, at times, like, big red, like, walls of arrows to try and kind of, make it clear that this lap is different from the previous one and, you're going through a different path this time and all that. And I was just wondering, having not played Mario Kart Tour, how much of is this stuff that's almost like automated when you play that, and that's they're having to kind of make up for the fact, well, no, when you play it, on Switch, it's you're in full control, so it's more of a risk that you're gonna like go away they don't intend, so they kind of have to, make this heavy-handed kind of stuff, but there's still some issues with it at the same time.
That was what I was gonna ask. Is this a feature of the mobile game making it less likely that you're going to miss these turns because it executes some degree of control? Because that would mean that they may have designed the stages with that in mind, and then in transferring them over in the ruthless calculated efficiency of we can sell these stages again, they may have inadvertently created a playability issue.
Yeah, it's possible. I haven't actually, stuck with Tor enough to fully grok the controls and just, so I really couldn't say, but there's definitely a lot of, stuff that's automated in that game, but I think you still kind of have to take the turns yourself, but maybe a listener can tell me if I'm wrong or not. Los Angeles, interesting, definitely cleaner, than I remember. It's nice, you see all the sights.
You're disappointed that you don't get your kind of like lap where the sky turns into Las Vegas from Blade Runner 2049.
Right. Yeah, maybe they were saving that for the future Montreal track or something. I
don't know. I feel like track 3 of Los Angeles should really just take you past, I don't know. John, what would be the most Los Angeles thing possible?
Traffic.
Lap 3 is just
straight up traffic.
You just stuck there.
Just not being able to, just the game grinding to a halt.
Well, speaking of traffic, So I had noted, I think it was in Paris Promenade or maybe some other kind of European city, that this active mobility bullshit where like you favor pedestrians being able to cross roads was interfering with my ability to race with a cart, throwing shells at people, because like all these like roads where there's actually something separating the lanes.
Fuck that.
Yeah, exactly. But thankfully, Los Angeles not designed for active mobility. You can see bike paths, and they're right there in the road with the cars.
Los Angeles isn't designed for any mobility.
Yeah,
it's designed for absolute frozen progress.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, all I'm saying is, yes, like keep the roads wide, keep the, and if I want to go over the bike path, if I want to, I should be able to, damn it.
Man, people here, like the bike path up the street from me, people park in it, which is fucking amazing. And like they get ticketed and they still do it. And I'm like, what the fuck? I've seen this car get ticketed like 4 times. Oh, it's great. I love it. It definitely isn't a constant pain. But I kind of wonder if maybe, and I've definitely heard a little bit of, I don't want to say grumbling with this pack, but a little bit if maybe if the pedals are off the rose, like they've done so many of them now that just releasing more, it's the impact is decreasing with each set, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's certainly a sense that like, oh, good, I'm getting more hashtag content.
It's true.
but it's, I don't especially mind personally, because I do want more content for my Mario Kart. That's kind of,
sure.
Isn't that the whole point of this DLC? Isn't this the whole point of DLC? You want volume, And I think that the quality is there also.
Especially if you play, like, just as I do, dip into Mario Kart 8 online periodically. Not for a tremendous amount of time or anything, but just here and there. It is nice to freshen it up because, we've been living with some of these tracks since launch day on Wii U. Yes. And then obviously even the adding the DLC that originally was on Wii U to the deluxe version on Switch. That's a lot of tracks, but we've lived with them so long that, that you could definitely kind of roll your eyes a bit when every now and again you get 3 choices and they're like all from the first 2 cups of the original version of the game. And oh god. So I mean, but once the last wave comes in before the end of the year, you'll have essentially a 50-50 split between the courses that were in, the deluxe version of the game on Switch on launch day, and then all the booster pass stuff. So it will, for me, it's just like that now, especially that we've got this far, the DLC, the booster pass courses do come up quite often when you're playing online, and that is nice just because it has kind of freshened it up. So there is, there's one element of it that's just like, oh yeah, I get to do, a new cup on 200cc. That's always fun. And that's just, usually over after a few tries, because as crazy as 200cc is, it seems to mess up the AI as much as anything else. You know what I mean? Like on that LA track, I saw like on the same bit a few times. I've seen like racers that were like meant to be my close rival just plow straight into this one obstacle. So. It's nuts, but it's not that hard if you kind of, know what you're doing, basically. And so that's fun, but, it's short-lived. And then, I guess time trials, you could take that a bit further. I can't say as I've done that yet, but really the longevity part of it for me is just keeping it fresh because, I've had Mario Kart 8 Deluxe since it came out in April of 2017. Like I said, I have not been playing it like for huge amounts of time all the way along or whatever, but it does still kind of, it could only get a bit old given that was the case. And these have been freshening it up. So it's kind of nice. But yeah, I wouldn't say this is one of the most impactful waves, but I guess you did have, some more new characters which are not particularly important in this game, it must be said, but like I like Kamek. It's not, I've already touched on the fact that he was like going to be a Mario Kart 64 and then he was cut out, so it was kind of nice to see him. And there's a nice touch that I did not sort of pick this up for myself, I sort of written about it online, that his horn noise is the sort of babble that he had in Yoshi's Island when you would start a boss fight. So yeah,
Oh my god.
because I'm not playing it on Wii U, and so I don't have this giant prompt on the gamepad to honk the horn. I would almost certainly have not discovered that for myself. But,
Right.
you know, having been told about it, it's like, oh, now, whenever I win a race, I can just repeatedly do it. But, yeah.
Makes the sound thing makes me wonder if he was originally planned to be released alongside the Yoshi's Island track. It's,
Yeah, it does kind of, it would have seemed like a good fit, wouldn't it? And it is kind of strange that I think that had one character. This one has 3, and there's still spots left for the next wave to have 2. So
Right.
it would have made more sense for it to be 2-2-2 than 1-3-2, wouldn't it? So yeah, I have no idea what could have derailed something this simple from coming out when it was
Yeah.
supposed to, but it does kind of seem that way.
Yeah. To finish with the tracks, Sunset Wilds, it's a GBA track, so it's very flat. It's not that interesting, except that the music I quite like. Is it too late to request it for this episode?
Well, I do. I have a request lined up, but you know, I mean,
Okay.
it's not absolutely set in stone. And no, I
Maybe
mean,
next week.
it's
Well, yeah,
well,
and the music might not be available or is easily available to find.
yeah, I
just
mean,
yet.
yeah, certainly so far, people have been very, very quick to move on things because I mean, it's one
Gotta
of the
get those
things you kind of
views.
look forward to with these waves is what are they going to do and how they're going to give it the sort of Mario Kart 8 treatment. And, like I said, the GBA ones and stuff can really kind of benefit a lot because most of them are not necessarily ones that have been remade before, like a lot of the time. So it is straight from, kind of scratchy GBA to like the wonderful instrumentation that Mario Kart 8 affords.
Yeah. So as I said, like it's not the most exciting track, except that they do have prospector shy guys just dancing around with their pickaxes, and it's incredibly cute. And so that kind of, that's the one thing that justifies this track being on there, I find. Anyway, so Koopa Cape, we mentioned it, right?
Yeah, like I
Already.
said, I mentioned that as one of the ones that stuck out. One of the more memorable ones for Mario Kart Wii for my money. Although, some of the other memorable ones they've already done. That's the thing. Like, the DK snowboard one, it was an earlier wave and stuff. So, yeah, that was one of the ones relatively that kind of stuck out to me. I mean, that's the thing, I guess. What sticks out at this point as not having been done? It's tough, to sort of, a lot of the ones I was kind of looking forward to, like, maybe like Waluigi Pinball, for instance, has been done. I mean, there's still a few Double Dash ones I can think of that haven't been revisited here, like the dinosaur one, I want to say. I think got revisited in Mario Kart 7, but has not been back for this yet. And the DK, the sort of the predecessor to the snowboard DK one, which was like the volcano one, which you sort of similarly kind of get shot out of the barrel cannon early in the race and then come down the mountain for the rest of the lap like that. That I don't think has been done. So yeah, that kind of feels like probably the game in the series at this point that where there's a few. So I don't know how many will actually make it into that last wave of 2 cups, but kind of feel like maybe that there'd at least be a couple of Double Dash left.
Yeah. And finally, Vancouver Velocity. I've never been to Vancouver, but of course it's got the requisite hockey arena, except that the Shy Guys are doing more something like ice.
Yeah, it's like Shy Guys on ice, yeah, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Which is, I mean, there's the remake of was it N64 Double Dash? One of those old ice courses, like already had like the ice skating Shy Guys, I think. So they kind of just reprising that, but putting them in an arena context. So it's very brief. You just like I don't know whether as well like it's one of those again as we've mentioned with the tour tracks. That's like, okay, you go the first lap and you don't go through the arena, but then the second lap and the third you do. So the first time I was playing it, especially on 200cc, you just kind of like, okay, here's something coming up that's a bit different. And you just like go flying straight because there's the middle part is like an obstacle. And the Shy Guys are skating around it, so I just flew straight into it, bang. But again, think about 200cc. I wouldn't say it's, to the same degree, but there's times where it's almost like a bloody cruising blast. Like, it just wants to keep you going forward so much. But, you know what I mean? Like, you plonk right into an obstacle and you think, oh God, well, this is going to be painful. But no, actually, especially if you've been sensible and, like, put your stats more in acceleration because you do have to slow down on 200cc, you're back on your way really fast, so much quicker than you thought.
Yeah, outside of that, like, it seems to be kind of like the cliche Canadian track, like all the trees are pine trees, and not, sequoias, I guess they have over there. Well, anyway, like, the stuff that you'll find in the X-Files episode. Yeah, like, it's basically almost like a Christmas/winter track, in most respects. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, and I've seen someone on the Discord say that the music didn't sound especially Vancouverish. I don't know what that means, but I guess I agree.
I would assume that means standing in whatever the music's popular in the city it's standing in for.
The Canucks sort of the goal music.
There
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know.
I guess maybe it's kind of PNW stuff, but like,
yeah, I've been to Vancouver once, and I do remember at a bar I went to. If you remember a band called the Tea Party, it was a Canadian band. The lead singer from the Tea Party showed up there, so maybe something. I don't know, probably like Our Lady Peace. I don't know.
You saw the singer from the Tea Party. Wow.
Yeah.
See, like you should be glad I'm here because I know who that is.
Yeah, yeah. He just got up and he started singing at this bar.
Okay.
Was he supposed to sing, or did he just decide to do it?
No, he just decided to do it. He's like this is the guy that looks like Jim Morrison. That dude.
Yeah.
Okay. A lot of people have tried to go for the Jim Morrison.
No, this guy's this guy looks a lot like Jim Morrison. But that was this. I mean, this is like 20 years ago or something. This is a long time ago. when people actually cared about the Tea Party. Maybe they still do in Canada, but elsewhere, not so much. But anyways.
No, I don't hear them on the radio.
No, I don't either.
Damn.
Yeah. Wow, I'm gonna have to download some Tea Party MP3s after this. To play when I'm playing on Vancouver Velocity, of course, to fix the music.
If only it had Excite Truck functionality, where you could load your MP3s.
Yeah.
If only they still had groove music around, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know, Greg, if you're done with Mario Kart. I was gonna, we've been going on for a bit, but I did have another game I wanted to talk about.
That's plenty, as far as I'm concerned.
All right. So another game that I've been playing a lot of with Karen, and you'll figure out why pretty quickly, is a game called Fight and Rage. And apostrophe, not, Fight and Rage. And it's, of course, a whatever you want to call them, a belt scroller, a beat 'em up, etc. It's an old school side-scrolling beat 'em up. And so we played through this, and it's really well made. I don't think I'm gonna end up sinking like over 100 hours into it the way that we did with Streets of Rage 4, but we've been compelled to go back to it several times because there are actually kind of multiple paths, multiple endings. The endings are just, like, did you see this character? Yes, no, then you get this part of the ending. Like it's kind of a toggle, so it's not the multiple, like it might say like, oh, like 8 endings, but really what you're getting is 4 variations on the ending, But the multiple paths is actually pretty cool because like you might not realize it at the beginning, but like when you start the game and you start going right and you're beating up characters, you might not have noticed that you had the option of going left instead. And which is like you're either like you're going into the battle or you're fleeing whatever has just happened. And so like if you decide to flee, then like you keep having like other choices like that. Like you end up finding refugees. Someone wants to go and fight back. You can go join them, or you can just keep, fleeing. And so like that helps keep the game short enough to want to play through it. In one go, like, because Streets of Rage 4 has actually kind of a little problem of maybe being a little bit too long. Same with the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles beat 'em up. Like that one's really too long because they try to fit in every kind of classic TMNT stage type into it. So in this case, like they want you, like you can't save in the middle of it. So they want to keep the game, like 30 to 40 minutes long. And so like these multiple paths are actually kind of a good way to hide, different types of levels that, you end up being surprised. Like when you do find a different path, like, oh, okay, this game does have a TNMT like, surfing level where inexplicably everyone's on surfboards, but you still beat them up the way that you did the entire game. Nothing changes, not even the physics. So it's really well done, and I'm kind of surprised by the depth of the combo system too, the combat, because I've been so one of the things that it does is that when you do a lot of damage, and like when you start beating up an enemy that is almost dead, like if he has low enough health, when you start your combo on the final hit, it will explode in a pile of bones and give you extra points. And so it kind of like incentivizes you to try to get an enemy, to as low, to get the health low, and then actually maybe like pause your combo and then, start another one so that you can get the extra points. It also has an actual kind of parry or block. Yeah, more of a block, because these games have been, like they come from the arcades. Usually blocking, like that was not really ever an option. It's not even an option in Streets of Rage 4. Like all you can do really is avoid. You can try to move out of the way of attacks, or you can use your special. But here, there is, if you press just like left or right at the same moment as someone hits you, then you block it. It's kind of like, isn't that like Street Fighter Alpha that plays like that, the parry system or whatever it's called?
Yeah, I believe so.
Street Fighter 3 was quite famous for its parry system, but I don't know that it was like entirely new to that or whatever. But that's certainly something I can remember hearing quite a lot of times, that kind of was marked it out as being quite an expert kind of game.
Yeah. So like the combat really well done, and the graphics are really, really good. Like I'm actually really impressed, because a lot of it is, it looks like an arcade game of the time, like the pixelated, the big pixels and everything, like it's going for an old school look, but the backgrounds seem to be in 3D a lot, so I'm guessing that they've been built in 3D, but they're made to look like they're built with like, what's the word, like rasters or something, like as if like they're simulating like the whole parallax thing that games back in the day tried to do,
Right.
but they're doing it with actual 3D graphics, so it looks really, really good. And there's a few like, there's a moment where like you're on a raft, and so it's one of those kind of the equivalent of an elevator level, except there's also an elevator level in this game. But anyway, so the raft, like instead of going from left to right, like it's moving into the screen, into these sewers, and so like it kind of looks like like one of those Sega. God damn it! I forget what the game is called. The space, super scaler thing. I have the space one in mind, but I can't remember
Space
exactly.
Harrier, and obviously later on
sure.
Galaxy Force 2.
Galaxy Force, yes. Thank you.
There it is.
Yeah. So yeah, it kind of gives that effect of like these super scalar things that were faking the 3D. But this one, looks better, probably works better because it's actually 3D. So we've been really happy with it. There's a few sticking points, like the game kind of, the more you play, the more you unlock tips for gameplay. And I learned way too late how I actually was pulling off the parry. I thought that, because like I parried accidentally a lot at the beginning, like in the early stages, and then it happens less and less often. And I was like, I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong because I was thinking like, oh, I need to punch at the same time as the enemy is punching me or something. And that was not the case. So I didn't figure it out until I could actually read it in the gameplay tips. But those kind of unlocked pretty late into the game. And another sticking point, unfortunately, so I'm gonna try to send you this. So, okay. Can I just... Okay. So there's like 3 characters that you can play as. Like this is like a world where like it's the future, I guess, and like there are mutant humanoid animals. And so you can play as a ninja, and I just posted in the chat the character portrait. So far so good. You can play as this bull guy. So he's, of course, like the big bruiser. Like he's got, the grapple moves. He's the Mike Hagar of this game.
Right.
And, of course, in all these games, you've got the girl. And so, yeah. I don't know. Can you tell me what's different about the third portrait that I just posted?
I mean, is that a panty shot?
It could be a penny shot.
Like, it looks
a penny
like
shot? Yeah. No, it is, absolutely. And actually, like, I just posted that. I couldn't get a good screenshot. Like, I'm trying to find online a screenshot of the actual character select screen. But it's the panty is more visible in the actual game. It's more front and center.
It's right there. It's, yeah.
So the ninja is just, like the face, and the bull guy, it's like the upper torso, like no panties to be seen. But the girl, yeah. So that kind of sucks because like this game has a lot of, what they call cheesecake, instead of beefcake, which I guess the bull is. But anyway, like lots of, ladies with, very little clothing, lots of Leia outfits from Return of the Jedi. Big breasts, and they bounce a lot. They're very well animated. And it's fucking weird. Also, the game loves to kill them, which adds to the weirdness, kind of makes you, I don't know, it makes me a little bit uncomfortable. And, the game is really, really good, and Karen and I have been enjoying it a lot, but of course, like it kind of sucks when the only choice for like the female character is just, like a sexual object, basically. And, it's not, like Karen will tend to play as the female characters. And she still picked the girl in this game. But, it kind of leaves a bad aftertaste a little bit. And, another thing is that she kind of sucks. so she's not a very good fighter. Couldn't really figure out how to use her well, if there's any way to use her well. But clearly she's at a disadvantage because like her special attack, which, usually is kind of it clears the area around you. It gives you a little bit of breathing room. Hers doesn't really do that very well. And she doesn't do a ton of damage to the enemies. So she's just generally weak. Her speed doesn't make up for the weakness. And so, yeah, she's not fun to play as. So eventually Karen switched to the ninja guy. But, yeah, so that's kind of, a little bit sad. And I'm weirded out sometimes when I play a game and like, oh, this guy went horny on main, as they say. Like, like I'm seeing your fantasies, I guess. That's cool. Yeah, so basically that's it. That's Fight and Rage. It's really well done. It's really good. But it's got that going on also. And I guess one notable thing is that this was mostly the work of one guy. When you read when you see the credits, the producer, the programmer, the artist, that's mostly the one guy. The music is someone else. But that's about the only thing that he didn't touch. And the music is really good too. Like the composer really understood the assignment for this type of game. So overall, like I'm really impressed by the quality. Like you can definitely find a lot worse beat 'em ups out there than this. So I would recommend it. It's really good. But yeah,
Cool.
It's got this one thing.
Nice. I'll just say that I have been kind of between games right now. So I went through the Ghost Trick Marathon and Steam sale hit. So I grabbed a bunch of stuff and I've been poking at it. But nothing's really jumped out at me worth talking about. So I'm just going to more or less skip this week, and go to John.
Yeah. I don't have a ton either. I'm still trying to finish off Final Fantasy XVI. I don't really have too much to add about that. Things do tend to get a little bit, I would say, cut and paste at the end where, the side quests in this game leave something to be desired. They're very, it's always silly to me in a game when, 1 minute you're fighting a god and you're, transformed into this Godzilla-like creature fighting this other massive monster. And then you come back to your home base and they're like, hey man, I need you to go and pick some flowers because I gotta make a potion.
The Xenoblade Redux where, hey man, you are now actually God. Can you go run an errand for me?
And that's exactly what this is. And by the end of the game, you're just sort of like, okay, like whatever, because everything is voiced out, right? Like all of your interaction with all of the different NPCs and stuff, and so you'll get these characters that go on and tell this elaborate story when it's just you're just sitting there and you're like, dude, I know you just want me to go and kill like 10 monsters. Just let me do it. Just let me do it. So I'm kind of at that point, but I'm very, very close to the end, and I'm still enjoying it. But yeah, it's just it's just extremely funny to be walking around and it's like you realize that it's like, oh, do you think that you can go to this village and kill these brigands? And it's like, did you just see what I just did? Like, do you know who I am and what I can do? I literally have the power of like 5 different icons within me and I can call on them anytime I want. But yes, I will go and I will usher your grandma across the street in some village out in the middle of nowhere.
There's a lot of fucking traffic in that street.
There is. But yeah, so I figure I'll probably be done with that. I'll be done with that pretty soon. It's wrapping up. It's getting to the point where there's not many more people left to kill. Let me just put it that way. But I'm enjoying it. Apparently there's DLC coming out. I didn't know that. I haven't really heard that. But it doesn't surprise me they did that for Final Fantasy 15 as well.
Although I remember in the case of 15, they canceled a bunch of the DLC. Because
did they?
It wasn't... Yeah, well, it was taking for fucking ever.
Yeah, well, I know they had the DLC for each one of the characters.
Uh-huh. And then they made one for the bad guy. And then I think they had more planned and they just spiked it.
Yeah. Yep. So
Yeah, not surprising.
Yeah. But yeah, that's about it. So after that, I'm not too sure what I will roll back into. Maybe Diablo 4 or Tears of the Kingdom I got to get back to as well. So
I like that John right now has this like FIFO queue of games where whatever gets pushed onto the top gets popped back off. So it's like it's not like the first game in is the first game out. His is like filoed his work, so now it
really is. Yeah,
it's like, well, the last thing in is the first thing out.
And this, well, the thing is too with Final Fantasy 16, though. I mean, it's a game you just kind of play through. Like it doesn't require a whole lot of mental.
Fucking Ghost Trick.
It doesn't require any really mental work. It's just, you just watch the story unfold, keep charging ahead, do some side quests, and eventually you get into a big fight. And you just sit there for 10 minutes and spam the hell out of everything you have, and eventually you win. You move on to the next thing, and then I'm up to date on all of the kind of the monster hunts that you can do, all the bounties that you can go and do, and those help you because they give you, later on down the line you'll use those monster materials for better swords and stuff like that. So, but I'm getting near to the end game, and you can kind of see where they're setting up where you have certain armor that you can only get or craft from killing these certain monsters in these hunts, and no doubt in the end game you probably have some sort of uber monsters to fight or something like that. Or
the post game.
Yeah, or the way this will work is they have kind of the challenge mode where you can see how quickly you can kill a boss for points or whatever. There's all that that's really the post game content. So
just challenges essentially.
Yep, exactly. But yeah,
cool. Greg, you want to take us home?
Sure, yeah, not too much to talk about. I did finish Ghost Trick, as you might imagine, because I wasn't too far away from the end, even when we spoke last week, and I've done so. And nothing too much to add on that, really. Just a very, very enjoyable, so a very well executed kind of version of it, and then just recalling all the sort of way the pieces come together for the finale was very nice. No complaints really for me on that. So it just seemed like they kind of executed it really well. I mean, it's funny, just like I've not actually gone and put like a physical card in one of my DSs or something, but I did because of like listening to the soundtrack on YouTube, I got videos suggested of like DS capture of the old game. And it is kind of like, it was that different. It's
very pixelated.
Yeah, because it was very low res DS.
Right.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, even 3DS provided a bit of a resolution bump from DS, which itself was like a modest resolution bump on GBA. So
right.
It was all pretty low res, and I guess like in some ways, like at the time, like it kind of I don't know, it kind of added to it, like the way that it kind of felt like, you were seeing it was like a kind of much later, but, kind of similar to the sort of like seeing, like stuff like DKC back in the 90s, you know what I mean? Like it's like, it looks different than other games on DS, and it's kind of like, how exactly are they doing this kind of thing and stuff, and so the fact that it was kind of a bit blurry, was kind of somewhat obscuring exactly what was going on, so it had a very consistent kind of aesthetic quality. I think it hung together really well on DS, but at the same time it is just kind of nice to see their work in such, clarity, and just like a really, kind of appreciate, especially as I just think the character design comes across a bit more.
Yeah.
With that in the high definition, in terms of obviously you see the character designs in the portraits and all that for the dialogue sequences and all that, but it's the same, but like I said, it comes across more with the extra clarity and everything.
Well, in their outfits, obviously, you get a lot more detail because those aren't in the portraits. Yeah. There were definitely moments playing through it this time where it's like the grunge of the DS almost added something to it, and so it was like too clean. But ultimately, like, this is undeniably better. It's just there were a couple of times where I'm like, I kind of miss the grunge. I kind of miss the pixely shit. Overall, this is an extremely conservative remake. Like, it's funny they don't call it a remake or a remaster. It's got the same name. It's Ghost Trick Phantom Detective. That's the name. That's the name of this release. It's not even like Ghost Trick Phantom Detective HD.
I in some ways, I'm almost a little bit surprised that the Phantom Detective kind of the moniker, subtitle, whatever, like, stuck around. Because, I don't know, I mean, this is just me projecting or whatever, but that always felt like it was kind of a, I wouldn't say dishonest or misleading, but you know what I mean? Like, it felt like it was a subtitle that was trying to position this a little bit more in the kind of tradition that had built up to that point on DS of, kind of mystery games and, Layton and all this kind of stuff. Obviously Phoenix Wright as well. You're dealing with the lore. So it's kind of like, it's
case file things.
Yeah, exactly. Hidden object games, all this kind of stuff that, had proven, for a time anyway, to be able to sell, relatively well on DS and stuff. And you just kind of thought, well, it's not really that, is it? You know what I mean? Like, we know what's happening. We see it. The whole point of this game is we find somebody dead and then we rewind time and just watch it happen in the 4 minutes before. You know what I mean? It's not really detective work.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Sissel is distinctly not a detective.
It does. That felt a bit dishonored. And I wondered, removed from that zeitgeist, whether they would just take it away. I can't even remember whether it had like an equivalent subtitle in Japan, because sometimes, those decisions are just something that's put on, for localizations and stuff. So I was like a little bit surprised to see that. But yeah, it is very much just like, I don't know. Maybe in some ways, by not playing up the fact that this is, remastered or HD, they might prefer to position it as simply like, oh, hey, this is like, it could almost be a new game for people to discover for the first time. Like, don't get bogged down, with the notion that this is something from 12, 13 years ago. And more, is that something that interests me? Maybe they think that's like more likely to put people off than it is to, kind of, be helpful in selling it. So I kind of get it, but hopefully
it does not. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, hopefully, just the sheer number of platforms this is available on now, and the kind of the promotional push they've given it and stuff, that it will have a chance to, whatever audience is out there for it, it will find it. That's the main thing.
Yeah, I mean that's the best I can hope for with this game, because it's so good and it's so much fun, and it's kind of twisted. It's a little bit, I hate to use it subverts your expectations, but I mean it does do a little bit of that. It very much is willing to be silly but also exciting, and look, it's got the goodest boy in any game ever.
Oh, sure. There's very little denying that. It's like you said, it is the balance of the sort of, the kind of whimsical, kind of light-hearted elements with some pretty macabre scenarios and concepts, that it is I like that kind of mix. I mean, I'd say, Majora's Mask almost has some similar kind of elements, to it in it. So it's a different style and, very different in many ways. But I like that kind of juxtaposition of, almost like a childlike perspective and, some playful and whimsical elements, but then at the same time, some really kind of horrible stuff that's there at the same time.
I spoke about nearsighted Jigo on last week's episode, and it's not really a spoiler. It's the very first bad guy.
It's in the demo, right, as well.
Yeah, and he he's the best example of that. He is a accomplished assassin whose defining characteristic is that his vision sucks, and he calls himself a sniper, but uses a shotgun. And his catchphrase is literally, he never misses a shot as long as it's a point blank range, which is literally saying, I never miss a shot as long as it's not physically possible to miss that shot, which is an impressive feat. And if you screw up, you see him kill our heroine repeatedly, over and over again. But then when when he is dealt with, he's dealt with in the most fucking Looney Tunes ass way. And nobody's like, oh, we should probably rewind his death. They're like, nah, it's fine. He can have this world's most embarrassing obituary ass death. It's great. But the thing is, it never feels incongruent. Like it never feels like those things aren't congruent with one another.
Yeah, I'd say so. It hangs together very well. Or every aspect, the art design, the gameplay, the narrative, it all comes together to something that has a pretty distinctive flavour of its own, but it's an unusual mix of elements that other games don't have, certainly, at least in my experience. I mean, it must, I guess, because it is...
It's for the best that there aren't more games that have
but it does, but that isn't to say that it's just like, this sort of weird salad of things that don't, mix, and it all kind of comes together to make this thing that has its own very particular identity. And it's very, very nice. Also, I think the soundtrack it's a pretty straight up like kind of remaster of the audio, but it does improve it quite a lot. And it is funny just how much like the soundtrack, as much as anything, would like trigger memories of playing it the first time. And it does, obviously we had recently the Advance Wars remake of the first two games on GBA come out, but I don't know what possible sort of feasibility there is for further Advance Wars soundtracks, but this sort of improvement with just like essentially decompressing the DS audio in this case to a fair degree. I mean, I'm not sure that's all they did, but that's it's a big part of it.
I went and listened. So in the game's menu, you can hear the music, and I was playing with it, and yeah, there's they actually did work on a lot of these songs.
Yeah, so it's not just that, but that's that because it was effective in the first place. But especially when you go back to DS games, sometimes the compression really hits you.
Oh yeah,
and that's where Advance Wars comes in, because it's like Days of Ruin or Dark Conflict, depending on where you were in the world, has a fantastic soundtrack. But if you go back to it, it is compressed to all hell and back. And I don't know I don't know that there's very much chance that the game that seemingly kind of killed the series would get remade. Above doing a new one or remaking something else. But I would love to hear that, like, given the same treatment essentially that the Ghost Trick soundtrack got here, because I bet it would be really, really wonderful. That's pretty much it for me. One thing I'll follow up on, I guess, also from last week, is that I did get around to watching that Sakurai Kid Icarus Uprising game concepts video. I guess the one really, obviously a lot of it's stuff that, if you were following it at the time as we were, it's kind of stuff you were aware of, things that were kind of out there. But the most interesting nugget that I took from it that felt like it was like somewhat fresh information. I don't know if this has been talked about elsewhere before and I've just sort of forgotten it or didn't see it or something, but this notion that after completing Super Smash Bros. Brawl, obviously, he was in contact with Nintendo, specifically with Iwata at the time, about making something for the forthcoming, new hardware, the 3DS, but also that he was essentially brought on to consult on the development of that hardware. Sakurai, as an outside person who was not inside the Nintendo structure at the time, was trusted with actually giving his feedback on how they should put the 3DS together as a machine. That to me seemed like I'd not heard that before. I thought that was kind of interesting. It just shows you, even though he had gone out on his own, how sort of trusted he was and everything. So, yeah, he also talks about, some of the constraints that the hardware put on like the game designer Kid Icarus, that they were really pushing it to the limit and stuff. And that basically, like, doing a dual analog option with the Circle Pad Pro was pretty much off the table because that required a bit of additional, like, processor resource that was not available. They pushed it that close to the edge that was not an option. But yeah, so I guess perhaps not all his demands for the hardware were met.
What if they just cut all the screaming voice acting? That might have helped.
He does mention that you could turn it off in that video. And also he mentioned that his intention was to outsource the writing of the narrative originally, that he would not have done it himself, but that essentially the way in which, in particular, the on-rail sections were so kind of like, okay, the script and the story has got to be, is precisely timed with the action, that it was just been too cumbersome to outsource it to someone else and then, like, really closely coordinate it so that everything worked. He just thought, no, I'll do it, even though I didn't really want to. So that was kind of another interesting nugget. But also, I think I introduced this subject, but then didn't sort of pay it off last week when I mentioned that Christian had emailed us and talked about, like when there's an issue with your Nintendo hardware that kind of affects how much you played something. So I talked about Kid Icarus and, like, not going back to it as much as I might have done, or not playing the multiplayer as much because of the way it controlled, and especially these days, it's probably a good recipe for, like, making my hands cramp up. But the kind of the touchscreen part of it was a factor as well in terms of the whole, like, swiping thing. Mm-hmm. Like, especially, like, early on, because it wasn't like super early, but it was, relatively early on with the 3DS's life. I was kind of mindful of the whole thing of, like, doing that and, like, scratching the screen or something, like when you're doing those kind of very sudden kind of actions, which it really does encourage you to do. So that was a factor, but I gotta say the biggest one for that, quite comfortably, that I can ever think of, is StarFox Command, because that has an almost bizarre emphasis on doing, like, back and forth or tight little loops to do the barrel roll. And you combine that with the game design where it's like you're almost constantly being asked to do that barrel roll, like, way more often than you ever did when it was on N64 and it was just a case of tapping a button. It was like, just like you had these, like, particular sequences, like with the, when you do the Independence Day thing of going, doing a sort of, what seems to be a kamikaze run into a sort of enemy craft, but no, it's not. You survive every time, but it's clearly based on that moment in Independence Day where Randy Quaid gives his life so that we all might live. And it just it did remind me
just
of that,
like real life.
I don't think I ever put StarFox Command in my DS Lite because I
wouldn't either.
I had it on the sort of in the latter days of my original. It wasn't a launch day system because I didn't have a DS at launch, but it was like a one from, like, the middle of 05 with the blue color. And, it'd been, by the time I got StarFox Command, I'd had it for a couple of years. It was kind of already getting a little bit beat up, and the DS Lite was a thing. So it was like, I'm going to upgrade. So I didn't really care too much then. To playing it the first time, like, whatever, I'm going to get the better DS Lite. But yeah, in terms of, like, then taking that and then putting it on, when I did get one, no, like, that definitely was like, I'm not going to scribbling back and forth, like, again and again and again and again. So yeah, that was a really strange pairing of like, okay, you got this thing with a touchscreen, and then you make it. It's one thing to just have it be touch based, but then to make that something that was so central to just pretty much not just those events with the Independence Day thing, but just moment to moment gameplay. Deflecting incoming fire was so important, as I recall, to that game relative to previous StarFox games. It just felt kind of irresponsible, frankly, to the hardware.
It did. Well, and I played that on the Wii U on the gamepad, so like it was very unpleasant. But you have to keep in mind, they didn't have shoulder buttons to. Oh, they did. They had shoulder buttons they could have used. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
The whole control scheme. I mean, the Kid Icarus control scheme is bad. It just is. Like it physically is painful to do.
Obviously, the provided easel shows you where their own opinion of it.
But yeah, like
I mean,
you can disagree with me, but Nintendo says you're wrong. They willingly took less profit on this game because you're wrong. This is a bad control scheme. Now, I accept that it may have been the only control scheme that could deliver their vision. That might raise the question of what's wrong here up a level rather than, well, we'll just put a plastic kickstand.
Well, and arguably only makes it even more sort of my earlier point about the notion that Sakurai was involved really from the ground level in terms of what the 3DS was going to be in terms of hardware and all that, only makes that final outcome even more peculiar than it already seems, frankly.
So setting that aside, StarFox Command has an equal lack of just. Did you not think about this? Except Argonaut didn't have that level of control over the hardware's development. So,
no, exactly. I mean, they're very much just coming at it from like, we've been given a sort of a job to do, essentially. This is a game concept that Nintendo has, and we are, tasked with executing it, to a fair degree. So, yeah, they certainly didn't have that level of input that Sakurai sort of enjoyed. But, still, I played both of those games on their hardware at the time and enjoyed them. I think, there's some upsides to the nature of those controls, but whether it ever really added up in the aggregate is another matter. And obviously Sakurai in the video is talking about how, I would love to see it ported to something, it feels like sort of lobbying, frankly. But, yeah, I don't know what the odds are of it ever coming back, but it is one of these things again, a little bit like Ghost Trick in terms of, that different circumstances. Obviously with Ghost Trick, it was more that it came too late to capitalize on that, as we talked about, that kind of zeitgeist that it thought it was going to be tapping into with all these like visual novels and detective games and things that were popular on the system. With Kid Icarus, it's more just that, to be freed from, just that early 3DS kind of malaise and the restrictions of the hardware. I mean, doubtlessly the graphics would lose some of their punch without the stereoscopic effect, because it was one of the games that was really designed around that, especially those kind of scripted elements in the on-rail section. Like, there's some really fun kind of, gags, kind of gimmicks that they use it for in that. So, I think it would lose something in that respect, but it could gain a fair bit as well. And it'd be nice for people who have been put off by, some of these issues, or just, like I said, 3DS wasn't that vibrant a scene at the time, as we know. So, there's lots of reasons why it'd be nice for it to come back, because I think there's plenty of admirable qualities in that game. But, we'll see. I guess, if Luigi's Mansion 2 could come back, that's one thing, but you can forget.
It sold a lot more copies.
Yeah, you can forget what a commercial juggernaut Luigi's Mansion has become, as much as those words don't feel like they should belong together for those of us who lived through the GameCube. That is the reality we live in.
Yeah, there will be a Luigi's Mansion film. Like, I'm just telling you this right now. It's going to happen. And you should just prepare yourself for a Charlie Day-led Mario universe movie. It's because it's going to happen. I'm sorry. That's the future that we live in. Commercialism is here, and Luigi's Mansion is cash. which is ironic because that's also what the game is objectivizing you to do.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. Well, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to go into your email. And I, again, thank you for sending email. So, stay tuned. We are back, and it is time for listener mail. So that means I'm going to not do listener mail and divert into something else, because yesterday somebody tried to fucking unseal the gate to hell. Limited Run Games did a presentation. We've made fun of limited run games before.
The thing is I don't even know which one of their announcements you're going to go.
Well, so that's the thing. So, John, did you see any of this?
No, I have not seen this. This is actually news to me.
All right, so I'm going to give you some things that Limited Run Games announced, and you just tell me when you think I made one up.
Okay.
So I'm just going to read them, and I'm not going to read all of them. I don't have time for that, but I'll just go through a few, and you can tell me which one I made up as we go. They are going to release Shantae Risky Revolution, which was a canceled Game Boy Advance game that never managed to make it out.
Yeah, I know that's real. I've actually seen that reference elsewhere.
Okay.
Didn't know it was from Limited Run Games, but I know that's real.
They're going to release a collection of some of their favorite games growing up. The Jurassic Park Classic Games Collection with games from the NES, Super NES, Genesis, Sega CD, and Game Boy.
That sounds like it's real, but I have no idea why anybody would ever make that product.
Good news, it's real.
I mean, like, who released the Bill and Ted games? Was it them? Was it Limited Run?
It feels like something they would have done.
Because
I don't know if that's true though.
Oh, it's real. I mean, you can go on the shop.
I know it's real. I just don't know that it was them.
Okay.
They're going to release a physical version of Castlevania: The Advance Collection.
Okay, that seems reasonable. Has some, it's going to have some collector appeal.
Yeah, they already did the NES, and the side, the collection that Konami did with the NES games and Bloodlines and Super Castlevania 4. They already did that one, so it kind of makes it. They got some nice alternate covers. The one with the Aria of Sorrow art on would be quite nice, actually.
Bill
and Ted was Limited Run, by the way.
Yeah,
right.
No, again, that
checks out. I wouldn't have known that for a fact, but if I had to guess,
it's like,
it's the 30th anniversary of Jurassic Park, right? So I mean, it's just That's I don't know whether they'll
But
actually
those games
ship
are
it
those
this
games
year,
are mediocre though. That's the whole thing. It's
They
like
were garbage then, they're garbage now.
That's
Yeah.
all
And you don't even get like the weird Sega ones where you
No.
can play it as Raptor.
No,
Oh.
you get like the weird CDI shit.
Ugh.
All right, so let's go another one that may be the thing I'm making up. The Gex trilogy is coming. They are re-releasing the Gex games, all three of them.
I mean, I can believe that.
Good, because
That has to be real.
apparently Square Enix didn't sell Gex when they sold Eidos. For some reason, they decided to keep Gex because Square Enix's name is on this thing. The only thing I could think of is they took an offer for Eidos and they said, "We'll take $3 million off your price if you take Gex." And their buyer said, "No, we don't want Gex. Here is an offer we will give you for you to keep Gex." So guess what? Gex is coming, John. Which means we're gonna have to read the Gex novel on this fucking podcast, one chapter at a time.
I
can't say I knew that there were 3 Gex games. That
There are
seems like
3
a lot.
Gex games.
Which
there are
one's
2 Game Boy
Enter the
Color
Gecko?
games.
Is that the third one?
That's I think that's the second one.
I
Enter the
know
Gecko-
there was.
Mm.
The only reason I know there was more than one is just because that subtitle is in my mind. Like, that wouldn't be the name of the first game, right? So it's like, I know there's more than one, but
Well,
beyond
so
that.
it's yeah, that's the second one. The first one's just Gex, and the third one is Deep Cover Gecko. I know that.
I just feel like it's there's some sort of somewhere in some alternate timeline there's a trailer that is sort of like some Diablo style trailer where it's like a bunch of treasure hunters running through a vault being chased by monsters, and they finally get into this vault and they open up this tome and blow off the dust, and it just says in like ancient script, "Gex is coming." And that's it. And then it just ends. And that's the end of the trailer.
It's got a 3DO logo next to it too, to really
Exactly.
to really drive the point home.
Like it sounds like a prophecy from the ancients. As the ancients foretold, Gex is coming.
All right, so moving on to things that may or may not be real. A spiritual successor created in the art style, acting style, and gameplay style to the 2 Zelda Philips CDI games.
That's not real.
That's real.
It's real.
No.
That one really blew my mind.
Why?
Like, I was like,
Why?
That's a great question, John.
Why would you ever do this? I mean, this is the kind of thing that you see somebody post on Reddit for a laugh.
I'm gonna put a picture in the chat.
it's something of RZ, right? I think
Yeah.
is the
Legend
name.
of RZ or something. That is from the new game. That image right there. RZ, the Jewel of Faramore.
It's like they actually got the people that did voices on those games, like back
Yes!
and everything.
Yeah.
Like,
You
it's
don't
kind
have
of amazing.
you don't have to ironically do everything.
Stop doing
Right.
things
Well,
ironically.
You just don't. It's just like, just because something was stupid and corny doesn't mean you have to resurrect it.
A remastered. I'm gonna use Donald's text here. A remastered version of the possibly sacrilegious 2011 character action game El Shaddai: Ascension of the Metatron will come to Switch.
Okay, I mean, I can believe it.
Yeah, that game's fucking nightmarish.
Yeah, that's another one. I think it got
To look at.
middling reviews when it came out in the PS3
Yeah.
generation, right?
I think it was mostly known for like having a pair of jeans that was being sold, or pants that the
Yeah,
character
something like
had that you could buy the jeans.
This was like the low rent version of like Lightning being a model or whatever.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So I was exposed to this game by being forced to play it by, I want to say this was Axis. No, it wasn't Axis. It was a company that doesn't exist anymore. I think it was Ignition. They don't exist anymore. And
it's the same people that put out Muramasa in America, right?
yes, and they did that JRPG on Wii with the really fucking atrocious voice acting. Arc-Rise Fantasia. So I was there to see Arc-Rise Fantasia, and then they made me play El Shaddai on a projector screen in their booth like 20 feet in the air, and it was very unpleasant to look at. Yeah, so that's not great. All right, John, so the fake thing's coming. A a a remake of Plumbers Don't Wear Ties with a pre-order bonus and novelization.
Oh, that can't be real.
I regret to inform you that is also real.
It's real. To be fair, they did talk about this. I feel like years ago, and it came up on the show, and we all laughed about it. Like okay, it's like oh god, they've already done Night Trap, and now they're doing this and all this stuff. And I totally forgot. And it's like but that isn't out. But now
they're doing a fucking novelization.
They've got a novel, but also like in the clip, like the promo clip, like they're doing more like behind the music type stuff. I think like taking the kind of cue from, some of the sort of the new bar that you've had with the Digital Eclipse retro stuff of like, okay, it's going to be like a documentary of the games.
It's
like
Plumbers Don't Wear Ties.
But exactly. It's that, this sort of, I believe in that promotional material, they had the, shall we say, gumption to refer to it as the first localized, in the American market, because it wasn't localized, obviously, but like it was before other games got localized. It was the first like American visual novel, is the way I think.
First off, bullshit. Secondly, excuse me?
Oh.
It's also not a visual novel. So, like, get the fuck out of here.
I think that was in that video, unless because I've seen a bunch of, I didn't see the actual, because it was like a 40-minute block or something that went up on YouTube, but I've seen individual uploads, from the various things. And so I might be, conflating it with one of the other crazy things they put up, but that was, it's, so they're actually interviewing the people that worked on it back then, and they're interviewing
from prison, I assume, right? That's
they're interviewing the angry video game nerd because he kind of helped raise awareness of this thing, because we did a video about it years ago now and talking about it all this. So yeah, it's and I think one of Unlimited Run's own employees, I think it was Jared Petty, I think, if I recognise his voice, just calling it a grease fire. That is part of the promo for it. So, they know what they've got.
Yeah, but it's time to stop. It's time to stop. I am telling you, it's time to stop.
It's one of these things that their business model and I assume one could say somewhat a similar thing with some of these other kind of, boutique publishers of, kind of physical games. Their business model is not predicated on instrumental value, it's like, oh no, you have this thing so that you can play the fun content within, it's like, that's not the business model, even if it's games that appear to be, superior, dare I say, to Plumbers Don't Wear Ties. That isn't really the point. It's the object that in question,
right.
the intrinsic value that they're selling and that their business model is built on. So, whether it's some really fine games like you might find in the Castlevania Advanced Collection, or some very dubious ones. I mean, it's really kind of doesn't matter, does it? If there's some reason why people like the idea of having that object, that's all that matters.
So we
this is basically like physical NFTs, where this is one of the shittier versions of Bored Apes. Like, the Bored Apes were already ugly, but this is something even worse than that. Plumbers, I'm reading about Plumbers Don't Wear Ties. It's considered one of the worst games ever.
It's not even a game.
It's not even supposed to have a good story, right? So why the novelization? I
assume it's an exercise in what sort of absurd extrapolation could one make in novelizing it? Because obviously, again, it's I assume a callback to the Nintendo Worlds of Power, or whatever those were.
I mentioned it earlier in the
Gex novelization.
Yeah, I have the Gex novelization.
Exactly.
I'm holding
this
it right
was a
now.
thing. You would take games that had incredibly threadbare narrative elements and then extrapolate a novel from them. And so it's kind of obviously it's an interesting choice when it's a game that hasn't got any other elements than narrative ones.
But the thing is, like,
who did it get to write this? Did they get Alan Dean Foster or?
I saw something in like a press release or something where it was like incredibly self-deprecating or something. It was like, wow, like this is the job everyone wanted or whatever.
So what I will tell you is that I would describe the majority of Plumbers Don't Wear Ties writing is semi-attractive person on screen wearing somewhat limited clothes and the awooga sound from a 1940s cartoon.
And it's a slideshow mostly, right? I mean, it's not even like actual quote unquote, I guess it's stuff like this that gave us the term full motion video. And it's like, well, isn't video always in motion? It's like,
no, apparently.
What, because this is very much not full motion, as I recall from seeing the Angry Video Game Nerd thing all those years ago.
So we got an email that asked about like what would the most valuable Switch games be.
Oh, physical. It was asking about how do you like project what's going to become hot on the secondary market like years from now? And
so I'm trying to find it.
No, I wish I was good at that. Otherwise, I'd be sitting on multiple copies of Ninja 5.0 or whatever. But I wasn't.
Well, it's like you always have to look at games that are released very, very late. So that means there's going to be literally a limited run of them.
Yeah, there wouldn't be that many. Also, licenses is a decent shout a lot of the time. Although, as we've seen with this, there is. Sometimes you will get kind of mild upsets where, somebody's manages to get a big corporation to actually, engage with them and do some stuff like the Disney games, that we've seen come back, like Aladdin and The Lion King and stuff, and obviously these Jurassic Park stuff and all that. It's like a lot of the time you just kind of feel like those probably wouldn't come back because there's just going to be, it would be a significant hurdle to kind of renew whatever needs to be renewed to get it released, and the company in question is going to be like, well, that's small beer. It's just not worth our time to even engage with you on this. So that is usually going to be a decent sort of prospect, but as we've seen, not always, you do get these things that, you surprise us and things come back. But I will say, one thing that crossed my mind is that, when the eShop was closing to some extent, even though obviously that's digital, but it's I was thinking, I had bought Leighton versus Wright digitally, but I was like, I probably should have bought it physically because I bet that'll go up in value.
Oh yeah, it's worth some money
because it's a crossover. It's there's no, it could come back. Certain crossovers do come back after years and stuff, but that would have been a decent bet, perhaps. For a physical copy, even though obviously it was available digitally for a long time, but it isn't now.
So I'm gonna pivot a little bit and do this email. Vince writes, "Howdy partners. I bought a physical edition of Everybody's 1-2 Switch. It's not everybody's, Vince. It's everybody one. It's a command. On the speculation that it'll be worth a lot of money in 10 to 20 years. It's got the recipe for success, namely a low print run released at the end of the system, and nobody wants it now. I mean, I don't know how low the print run. A lot of retail stores had it." For example,
I guess it's relative, isn't it?
We thought it was the nothing, but apparently
for a first-party product like this, I'm sure it's modest. But compared to some of the stuff that's really, really like the aforementioned Ninja 5.0, I just think they've barely made any of those.
Right.
That's why that, obviously some of it's because it reviewed quite well and it got a thing of this cool game that you can't play because there's nothing that isn't out there. But a lot of it's just, there just aren't that many of them.
No. For example, the NES Flintstones game is worth $1,800, not because it's good, but because it's the last piece of a complete NES collection, and Devil Stirred's worth a lot physically in the US. what Switch games do you think will have high value in the future? Will those limited run or strictly limited games actually skyrocket in value? And will anyone even bother with a complete collection of physical Switch games, considering how dang many there are? Thanks a bunch and keep shooting for the stars. So I think we just touched on it. Because they have these brands that have come into being that are effectively preying on this. They're putting out these, like, this game that doesn't need to be physical. Like, it's a lot of times these are digital only games that were digital only games for a year or more before their physical version came out, but they saw the opportunity to just do a physical version and make money off of it. I think it's probably gonna pretty well kill the number of people who want to try to have a complete Switch collection, because these things feel like they're meant to prey on those people. And ultimately that only works if there are people who want to do it. And so it's, the NES game collection feels daunting, but it's not enormous. And there was never any attempt by someone making NES carts to go, I'm going to fuck collectors with this one. And I feel like if that takes the impetus out of people to want to go after them, because I think Limited Run Games has done like 50 fucking Switch games at this point.
Oh, it must be plenty, yeah, because there's lots of stuff that just, like, as you mentioned, are things that don't seem like the most obvious candidates. They might be like, Alien Isolation.
Chicory is one they announced.
That launched on Switch as a digital game, having obviously been a retail game on other systems years before. But then, Sega had declined to do it as a physical. Well, we could do it, and we can put some things in different, packages, some more premium than others, add some collectible elements and sell that. So yeah, it must be quite a large number at this point, I must say. I'm sure in some ways, like, the margins might be like, healthier doing the discs rather than Switch cards, but still, they must be healthy enough based on just how many Switch games they seem to have done. And I don't really follow it that closely myself. Most of the time, digital convenience is paramount for me. There's the odd time where I might like the idea of having a physical thing. Maybe it's got cool artwork and it's actually a lot cheaper than the digital. Right. Because sometimes that happens. But yeah, otherwise it's digital for me.
I think the other thing is people will probably, oh my God. So according to this, they are on limited run number 206. I feel like part of it also is that people aren't going to have nostalgia for Switch carts. Cause I think a significant portion of the marketplace, played these games digitally. And so they don't really think about, Switch. Yes, that's my cartridge based experience. And so a big part of collecting, at least for the majority of the people who do it, is that nostalgia for the system. Maybe not nostalgia for the specific game, but for the system as a whole. They care about that system and they care about that experience of getting a cartridge and sticking it in there. I don't think many people are going to think about, I'm looking at some of the stuff they've done, and like, why did they make a physical version of Tetris Effect Connected?
Yeah,
like,
I don't know why.
I don't know. I think that it might be, from what I'm seeing online, and it's all anecdotal, but I think that there's a lot more. There's a significant market of physical media preppers who are, waiting for Nintendo to pull the plug on the shop.
Just live through them pulling the plug on, the Wii U and the 3DS at the same time. So I'm sure that things like that play a role.
Yeah.
But if your objective is to try to be like, I'm going to get out in front of it, I'm going to have the collection just in case. Like, no, because I don't think these are going to make you. If your goal is to figure out what's going to make money, I don't think you having a physical copy of East Origins for Switch is going to be it. That ain't the road. So I feel like if what it's going to be games that people actually want to play. Like, and I don't say that to denigrate Holy Potatoes Compendium. I'm sure there are people who love the Holy Potatoes Compendium. I don't know what the fuck that shit is. But
I keep seeing those games on the eShop.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, sure, the Telnet Shooting Collection looks cool as shit, and it's got neat art, but it's going to be games, and this is basically how it is in general. It's going to be games that people know. It's going to be a fucking Pokemon game, or it's going to be probably not Mario Kart, because there's going to be 80 million units of it out there, but it's going to be. It's going to be stuff that people have heard of. That
you raise a good point with Pokemon in the sense that, it's one of these things that you would think, well, good lord, like, Pokemon was so popular, there just must be so many of them out there. Why is that going to go crazy in value? But they do. Like,
right.
They really, really do. It seems like with the DS games, for instance, the people who were kids when that came out and that was their generation of Pokemon, they get old enough to have disposable income, and then there's this big surge, of people trying to buy it at once, perhaps, and that even though there are so many, it still spikes in value. Right. So that is an interesting case, it must be said. But I guess we'll see if that sort of cycle still works when you get to those latter generations where, like you said, people might have grown up not getting the physical cartridge or card or whatever, but getting, just having a digital game installed, and how that affects, their desire to go back eventually. I'd be kind of interested to see.
Yeah, and I don't know, we don't know what this is where the alarm goes. We don't know what the successor system is going to be. We don't know what the availability of these games is going to be. We don't know what the availability of platforms that can play these games is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, I guess recently was there some like minor kind of noises from Furukawa about sort of continuity when it comes to Nintendo account and stuff like that. But
continuity of the account.
Yeah, that is far from the kind of comprehensive, hey guys, everything's going to carry over. You're going to be able to play, most of everything, if not everything, on the next system. We're a long, long way away from that.
Which is a different email that we have.
It is, yes, that's true.
I don't know. I just feel like looking at what happened on the NES and what's now happening on the GameCube and happened on the Super Nintendo. N64 had some of it, but not quite the same way. GameCube is a great example. I don't know that looking at what happened on the GameCube is going to be instructive of what happened on a system that came out 20 years later in a very different marketplace, where people interacted with games in a very different way, and where we had these market players who are literally just trying to exploit that collector's impulse. I actually think they'll have the boomerang effect of suppressing the collector's impulse simply by merit of existing.
Yeah, well, like I said, I guess there's separate things as well, isn't there? There's the idea of, I'm collecting a library for a whole system, which certainly makes sense when it's a system that was more modest in its kind of how much software came out for it. And even something as popular as the NES, it must be remembered, there was a certain amount of kind of restraint that was forced on people, by Nintendo and stuff so it wasn't just the free-for-all that you see now in terms of people putting games on something. So even comprehensive NES collections kind of make, as you already mentioned, James, much more sense than, something now. But that is not the only place from which collecting, is motivated, because it may, I think, much more of this sort of thing is more about if you were in a sort of particular fandom, you know what I mean? Like you would want, all this. I mean, another one of the games that I saw mentioned for a physical release that's been, a digital game for some time was Chicory, for instance. And I really feel like that's probably aimed at people that have already bought Chicory, that really like it. And they're like, I like it so much, I want this thing that kind of, immortalizes my admiration for the game. again, the intrinsic value of this object that kind of represents, my admiration for it. I very much doubt that it would be driven by people wanting to have a comprehensive collection of Switch games, or from people who are like, no, I have thus far refused to play Chicory because it is not available physically, and now I will. Not to say there aren't any of those people, but I wouldn't imagine it would be in enough numbers to actually make that make sense as a commercial venture.
Yeah. I suspect that the game that is going to be the most valuable Switch game, people in our audience are more likely to own than the average user. It's going to be a game that has some cachet that was probably generally available, not a game that was like, yeah, this is a digital game first, and then we just put out a physical copy for the benefit of Redemption Reapers. But it's going to be a game that you and I know that maybe the general audience wouldn't necessarily know, like an Ogre Battle. Ogre Battle is a great example. It's a game that has a reputation amongst enthusiasts. It was a low-run game, but those combinations of things makes people want to see it. And for a while, it wasn't available. And we don't know what availability is going to look like for games in the future, for games that are coming out now, because a lot of these games just get moved from one system to the next, especially these digital games. Like, am I going to have a hard time getting a hold of, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, what are the prices, the secondhand prices for Ghost Trick now?
Did
they plummet?
I don't know. Let's see. Let's take a look. Probably not. It's not. It doesn't usually, because like the issue with the DS is the
R4,
the bootleg. Well, that and the bootleg. Yeah, Ghost Trick was basically running for complete in-box somewhere in the $80 range, which isn't cheap.
It's not bad,
but
that's not terrible.
But yeah, it isn't crazy. Like, I've got DS games that are worth way more than that. But it didn't. There were a not insignificant number of copies of that game made, because it was a Shu Takumi game, it was a Capcom game. They expected it to be at least modestly successful. But yeah, that's what you're looking for. It's going to be a game that it had a low run, but is actually a game that people associate being played physically. And I don't know that game exists in the same way on Switch. So, like it could be a game that got delisted, like super delisted. So one of the most valuable 3DS carts is the combined Fire Emblem Fates one that gave you the middle path, because right now you can't get that path because it's not digitally available anymore, and that was the only way to get it. There's no cartridge that had that path on it except for that particular version. That was the like, no, I want to be able to incest with all of my family's path. I mean, look, that is the incestiest game Nintendo's ever put out, which is saying something. So, yeah, that's kind of my cut on it, is that the Switch might not be the collector's hotbed that even something as recent as the GameCube is. I don't know that we've seen the Wii's prices really go nuts yet. There's a handful of games that have spiked because they were super limited run, pun not intended.
Yeah, Metroid Prime trilogy, right? Actually, was something that kind of ended up with a decent value because they didn't make that, keep like making that available. I guess they kind of did it.
Right.
In Japan they were like separate games. Like, they just did 1 and 2 as separate new play control games. And then for the West, it was like, okay, we're going to do a trilogy pack. And, we got the slipcover, cardboard slipcover thing or whatever. We're going to set and then we do it for a while, and then that's it. They didn't keep making it available. So that kind of spiked that value. Like you said, it's something that's not super duper popular, but it's got a certain cachet, it's got a name, it's got history. So it ticked a lot of the boxes, and it did end up being, something, I don't know whether it's crazy or anything, but for like an actual Nintendo game, they got pretty expensive, I think.
Yeah.
I'm going to blame all of this on the Criterion Collection releasing Armageddon. I'm just going to say that's when the Criterion Collection lost their way. Their goal was to preserve works, that deserved, to be preserved, that deserved to be treated with respect.
Well, yeah, and I don't want to miss a thing, Guillaume, so I'm glad that they did that.
Michael Bay's Armageddon, of course, was them probably being like, you know what, we should probably be making money. So, and like the studio let them do it, so they kept doing it. There was The Rock after that also.
The Rock is a classic.
But I guess that maybe like companies like Limited Run, they look at that and they're like, yeah, we can do that too, except that they kind of miss the point of, Armageddon was a big fucking movie, at the time. So like maybe plumbers don't wear ties. I don't know the artistic merits of it. I'm not going to compare it to Michael Bay's Armageddon, but something tells me like it's not going to get the doesn't exactly have the vast appeal that movie did.
Now thinking plumbers don't forget the novelisation. Where's the Michael Bay movie adaptation? Imagine the camera spinning around some of those shots. That'd be amazing.
Except that Plumbers Don't Wear Ties have it's basically a bunch of stills, right? So
yeah.
How do you have the camera going around the stills?
You can't. I could do anything with AI these days, can't you? I mean, if it's going to annihilate human civilization, we can at least get that out of it first.
Well, to paraphrase a great article I read recently, we're not here to solve the technical problems, only the creative ones.
Yes.
So
I did write that. Yes. This is a great out when you've got an idea but don't want to solve it. That's not my problem. All right, well let's get back on track with the emails.
Did you finish off the list of stuff that was not real versus real?
Oh yeah, no, we went through everything. It was all real.
It was all real. That was always going to be the gag.
Every nightmare idea there was real for some reason.
To be fair, there was some interesting stuff. Oh, yeah. The clock tower thing, that being localized and everything like that is a very interesting thing. With Way Forward collaborating on it, so they're going to have some new animated sequences, and obviously it's been fan translated before, I'm sure, but there's an actual official kind of localization for it is interesting. It's a game I've heard a fair bit about down the years, but I've never played it. It hails from the 90s when Japan just sort of quite liberally pilfered people's likenesses without giving a shit, without thinking.
I was going to say, with Way Forward working on this, is Jennifer Connelly going to do a belly dance? Is that
it was just so they just took her face and called the character Jennifer as well. It's incredible, but I guess, I don't know, maybe it was just because she was grown up by the 90s that thought they made it okay. But I mean, I think it's pretty obviously her in Phenomena, the Italian movie, a spectacularly mad film. If you've ever seen Phenomena, just incredible. Donald Pleasance and his he has a chimp that's his helper. And a girl who can communicate with insects and sort of ends up being able to command them. It's insane, absolutely insane. I guess it made some sort of impression in Japan because they just lifted her out of that into this survival horror thing that also is famous for this sort of scissor man character that kind of seemingly kind of stalks you or something. I'm not that familiar with the details, but I remember having heard about that. And then years later, I'm watching The Exorcist 3, which is not as bad as that title might make it sound, actually, because The Exorcist 2 is quite rubbish. But the third one was the original author wrote the script and directed it, and it's kind of an interesting film. But there's this part where one of the most like effective jump scares I've ever seen, and someone comes out with this giant surgical implement for cutting a body in half, and it's that's where they got it from. Like, that's the system. Yeah. Like, it's so blatant that is where they got it from. But it is, I kind of get it, because it's like, wow, that it's not really a jump scare movie, and then that happens, and you're like, fuck.
And that one's interesting to me on the Clock Tower's interesting to me on a couple reasons, not least of which is the person that they have doing in the creative lead role is both a really talented artist and also apparently a long time fan of that game, which is good, because that means like it's someone who actually likes it and reveres it, and like to the point where like, here's some fan art I did back in 2014. So like receipts are available. So
I'm looking at this, and did they take Jennifer Connelly out the likeness?
They looks pretty on point, right? So what I've seen so far, I mean, there's even like the art. I see the artwork. Yeah. The art, not only just in the regular game, but also like they've got like, you know, sort of way forward kind of like new artwork that's on the thumbnail for like the YouTube video for the announcement. Yes. So it's this like new artwork, and it looks like anime Jennifer Connelly. Like it's so yeah. I guess they feel they're okay. They're not the likenesses aren't gonna. You know, there's not gonna be an issue there.
Okay. Well, I'm just seeing like this video right now with the voice off, so I need to watch it with the voice on to. But like, it seems like the character portrait changes over the course of the video I'm watching, and I don't know. I feel like maybe they went and changed it.
It's possible, because I'm not that familiar with the original, you know, to know if they would have modified it. You know, it's just something I've seen videos about years and years ago, and, you know, something you hear about more than see, to be honest. So, yeah, but you know, that is a pretty interesting kind of revival thing. And of course, yeah, the Shantae GBA game kind of getting necromancered or whatever, that's pretty interesting, because, yeah, basically sounds like, you know, they shot this thing around back in the GBA's life, and the fact that, you know, the original Shantae was a very late GBC game, when basically, you know, the GBC's days were already over and the GBA's had begun. It did not sell at all, and therefore, you know, they couldn't get anybody to bite on another Shantae game at that point. It was just like, well, you know, it would have had to be something they could prove would sell at retail in those days before digital distribution and all that, and so they had to kind of can it. And you know, now they're trying to bring it back. That's pretty interesting, because I kind of assumed like how much of this just went into the DSiWare game a few years later and all that, but it does seem like quite different with the premise about like rotating the world and all this stuff.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. That definitely more of that and less fewer plumbers, I guess.
I can't believe all those things were real. I can't believe that. It's like I was hoping for some sort of redemption arc, I guess. No.
So I was getting these drip fed to me while I was trying to work, and I was basically like, "Stop it! Stop sending me this! I don't need this."
The crazy thing is that several of those things sound like something that like James would make up. That he would get a kick out of.
Plumbers don't wear ties
because they're so diabolical.
I guess like it's occurring to me, not to keep harping on this, but like the limited runs, like I feel like maybe this whole thing detracted from the actually cool announcements that they made. Is it just me?
It did. No,
all I heard
did.
Like basically the news that I saw was like. Basically, like, I interpreted it as a limited run, just announce a bunch of shit no one wants. And I didn't really hear about Clock Tower. I didn't hear about, like, any of some of the, I think that I don't know, like, they're doing weird stuff, like releasing a cassette of the music of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles games. Maybe not that cool, but, I don't know, they've got some other stuff that sounds cool that's coming out, but all I heard was Jurassic Park. It was like
And that was the least offensive of them. It was
I guess.
You're right. It does detract from the actual cool stuff that they announced. So, good job, idiots.
And of course, Shantae, I've just mentioned, was another one of those famous, like, that cartridge was worth a lot, wasn't it? Because it was a low print run that didn't sell that well, and I guess even people who theoretically might have been interested in it, it kind of passed them by because those people probably were more excited about what was going on GBA or whatever. And then, but it reviewed well. It was, something that, kind of had a certain recognition. And therefore, later on there were more games, it became a series, and so that became a sought after cartridge. But of course, it has since been re-released and stuff, so I don't know how much of a dent that put in the, the secondary value or whatever. But that was one of those kind of classic cases of a late game being, something that went up in price pretty quickly, I would have thought, relatively.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right. Let's get to the emails that I had picked out. Keon, would you read Lemonade's email? It's the last one.
Lemonade writes, Dear RFN, with the news that Daisy is playable in Super Mario Bros. Wonder, what is the likelihood of Waluigi also being playable? He deserves to escape from the party and sports games.
0.00000%.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't like the people writing in just lying to us. Like, he deserves to escape from the party in sports games. Like,
no.
What?
He deserves to be eradicated.
To where? That's the thing. I mean, you might take the obvious
the fires
implication
of Mount Doom.
The obvious implication that it would be to Super Mario Bros. Wonder, but it could be to the crack of Doom. We don't have to be utterly annihilated by the magma within or whatever. Yeah, so I don't.
Only this can unmake him completely.
Yeah, that's true. It is difficult, seemingly, to unmake this thing, even though he was conceived as a sort of crutch, as to give Wario someone to play with in Mario Tennis for N64.
A literal place filler.
Yeah, it's true.
I can't think of Waluigi without thinking of probably a Criterion Collection release, Multiplicity with Michael Keaton. Like he had a clone, then made another clone, then one of his clones made a clone of themselves, and that clone was defective. Just low
Perfect.
IQ and etc. And so that's what Waluigi is: clone of a clone. I don't know. Maybe it's not that funny.
I mean, you're not wrong, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
And that's upsetting. Like, that actually is upsetting, and I don't like it.
There hasn't been that much momentum, seemingly, for, like, Waluigi. I guess, like, the nadir for Waluigi was not being in Mario Kart 7, right?
Right.
Like, that was bizarre. Like, good lord, if you can't get in Mario Kart 7, like, what is the point? I guess you'd be pretty sort of despondent at that point. I mean, I guess there was a certain amount of desire to have him show up in Smash Brothers in some quarters. It never seemed particularly likely. He got an assist trophy. That was probably about always as far as that was going to go. But yeah, the fact that you've got Daisy, I mean, a line has been crossed. I feel like we can't. I don't know whether I would put it at absolute zero, in light of the fact that somebody like Daisy is not something that I would have expected.
Daisy has at least appeared in real games, though. No one would ever accuse the Mario Party games of being real.
I guess. Coincidentally, playing Mario Kart 8, Daisy was harassing Karen on the tracks. And
nice.
So, as always, our refrain, fuck Daisy. But also, like, on the Los Angeles track, there's a shop that I saw that's called Princess Orange. And so now that's our new nickname for her, I guess. I don't know if this shop is associated with Daisy, but, like, what other princess in the Mario universe is orange?
It's a good point.
That's
Like,
true.
look,
It sort of sounds like, you know, if there was like a Mario Luigi style running gag where like he's like Green Mario or whatever, like that's what they'd call Daisy.
Basically.
The difference here is Daisy's been in Smash, Waluigi's been in Assist Trophy. Like
Daisy's been in a side scroller, you know, Mario Land as the end goal, much like Peach was in, you know, the first Super Mario Brothers. So I guess you could say.
Are you saying that the flagpole is going to be a character in
it's Super Mario Wonder? Are you telling me it's impossible you could end up playing as a flagpole?
It's
something like there was that one bit in the trailer where the flagpole just got destroyed, didn't it? Like there was a stampede in it, and the flagpole got. So maybe it's just going to come back, like, you know, Bionic Mand, and he's going to be a playable character. We don't know, but yeah, the point is that's some heritage in the side-scrolling games in particular, rather than just the spin-offs. So I guess that's why. Even though it is, you know, branching out, it would feel like a step further, or, you know, perhaps multiple steps further to get to the point of a Waluigi, getting in there, you know, because it would be the same with Wario again. Like, well, he's been the villain in a side-scrolling game before, you know, with Super Mario Land 2. So, like, if he were in it, I'd say I still feel like that's pretty unlikely, because it just feels like he's very much his own thing. At this point, and that's kind of separate. But, you know, if he were, you could still trace it back to some part of, like, side-scrolling Mario history. Waluigi, you can't. So that's just why it feels more, you know, unlikely. But the main thing is I'm just relieved that, you know, we're past the Daisy, Yellow and Blue Toad. I mean, that's the real important thing, I feel like. But, you know, you could have got past that just by having Peach, which are just astonished they didn't. You know what I mean? Like, the people who, you know, tell us again and again, you know, what matters is gameplay.
Yellow, Blue Toad.
What matters is gameplay, right? We never let the story box us in to, like, something that's not fun. But they're like, oh, no, we gotta have Yellow and Blue Toad because we can't have Peach because, like, well, then who would we rescue? It's like, you fucking kidding me?
It's a good point.
It's like, and so it's just like, well, obviously,
touche, atheists.
Eventually, they saw the light on this because, like, with 3D World, it's like, oh well, we're just rescuing the Sprixies or whatever they were, you know. And it's like, no, we can have Peach. And so, how did you think of that with this Super Mario Brothers? It's absolutely bizarre, rather than having two easily confused characters. So that's the important thing. Is we're past that. Whether it's Daisy, Peach, Yoshi, anybody else that might be in there, even Waluigi, just visually distinct characters that we know.
I'm going to stick to my 0.00 because I think Nintendo legitimately doesn't like Waluigi.
Yeah, I think they just kind of like regret him as a character.
Yeah, I think there's just an acceptance of he's allowed to go this far and no further. Mm-hmm. There are people in positions of power who look at him and go, oh.
Yeah,
the Waluigi containment unit.
Yeah, exactly. Waluigi isn't paying our rent, boys.
We will hold the line. He shall advance not one step further. And so I think any attempt to try to bring him into the light will be met.
They're not going to mainstream Waluigi.
Sets off the bomb in his collar.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Yeah.
One last wah for the road.
Waluigi will not be normalized, that's for sure.
Thank you again, John. I didn't have an episode title, but now I do.
I'm always here for you.
Oh, that's the worst part of it. Oh God, it's just I just.
So far we've got. Basically, I think we've got 0%, and I'm going in with some almost trivial fraction greater than 0. That's what we
Did you just $1 bob me? Is that what this is?
Yeah, kind of. That pretty much. Yeah, I mean, but so I mean, that is a range of possibility. Sounds equal to sort of aliens to balloons, doesn't it? Like,
yeah.
Really.
I guess, I could go like just one unit more than Greg, but maybe I'll just take the negative percentage.
They're
Like,
going to
I
start
think that
removing
maybe-
him from content he's in.
Yeah, basically.
Can you write off a character for tax purposes?
I mean, who says you can't? There's going to be a patch to Mario Kart 8. They're going to call it stability. Why is there an open spot in the roster? Wait, where did Waluigi go?
Wait, is Waluigi in Mario Kart 8?
He's got to
not, is
be.
he?
He's got to be.
I haven't thought about it. I remember him not being in 7 and that being a thing.
Right,
okay,
But
right.
I hadn't even considered whether he came back or not.
He's got to. I mean, the fucking
No, he's got to be. Yeah, no, I
pink
just
gold
forgot.
peaches in
You
there.
got, yeah,
See,
exactly.
like-
He's definitely whatever you think about Waluigi, like the game's character roster is not too good for him when he's got
I
pink gold
guess.
peach and some of the other things in there.
Multiple babies. Let's see. What do we got? Fucking Tanuki Mario is in there already. Like, there's got to be.
Right. No, he is. I just kind
Okay.
of forgot because, yeah, I was
Mhm.
trying to, I guess. And
Yeah, well,
I succeeded.
That's the correct response, and
There's
that's
a
why
lot-
I go 0.
There's a lot of characters at this point, especially with the new ones coming in, and it's, if you don't use him, it's not, you're not necessarily going to think about it. But yeah, I've been thinking about it. I can remember playing online and see. But the thing is, you do get a lot of people online using like the same build. A lot of
Yeah.
there's some build that's just math with the parts and stuff that's just like it is mathematically the best, and I
Right.
think Waluigi might have been part of one of those builds at some point.
I think
Oh,
you're
no.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
like
on
another
some
one was
bike.
like Rosalina on a teddy bear or something. Like, so you end up seeing.
Great.
I think it might be Waluigi on Wiggler.
Oh.
You'd see that a lot actually at one point, but I don't think you see it as much now. Maybe because
Well, now you can do Wiggler on Wiggler. So
that's true. Wiggler on Wiggler crime even.
yeah, there's an image that somebody posted in the Discord of everyone was driving Wiggler on Wiggler. So it was just Wiggler on Wiggler at the starting gate. It's very upsetting. I did not like it. So yeah, that's a nightmare I'll never get away from. I actually think it was Xander. I think he posted it for Wiggler Wednesday.
Wiggler Wednesday.
Yeah. Oh God. So
There was this meme that
well-
started because of a typo by Nintendo.
yeah, that Nintendo tweeted in like 2016 Wiggler Wednesday, and it was a picture of Wiggler on a Wednesday, except they fucked it up and typed Wigger Wednesday.
I remember that.
And
I'm glad there was something there because I was like really
And-
like
and
this,
so
this
it
is
is
a
a-
thing that lives in infamy from like
And so
social
the
media in
problem is-
2016.
the problem is for them, Jeff Gerstmann saw it and immediately preserved it before they had a chance to realize their mistake and delete it. And from there, Wiggler Wednesday became a thing. Just because it's like, what a dumb typo. What a dumb typo. How do you not have somebody just look at it and go, hold on, wait, before you submit that, let me take a look at, oh no, fix that. So yeah, that's where we ended up. So so now Wiggler Wednesday is a thing as a consequence. But also, like, even fundamentally, part of it is because it's such a stupid thing for them to have tweeted to begin with. Like, who's like,
sure,
oh,
yeah,
yes.
kind of think, guys, he's got some of that, we're all just spinning our wheels waiting for the Switch to come out. There's sort of energy about it, hasn't it? Good Lord.
Well, anyway, I think it's time for us to wrap the show. You can send your emails to rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. That's how we're going to end the show. That's rfn@nintendoworld.
Yeah, I was going to say, it kind of feels like failure.
Yeah.
Like we
You're right.
mismanaged something somewhere. Something
We
went
did.
wrong.
Well, we're at another hour, so it's like, well, I don't want to pull another one of these emails because they're kind of long.
If somebody's probably listening to it on a Wiggler Wednesday.
That's true. If it is Wiggler Wednesday for you right now, be sure to greet everyone you see with a happy Wiggler Wednesday, especially in professional settings. And yeah, it'll brighten your day as you get through the back half of the week. So, I think it's time for us to wrap the show up. We're going to go deal with the plugs. As we've alluded to, another Warriors article has gone up. This one is particularly demented in a way that I say that I'm the author of it, and I'm like, boy, this is some fucked up shit's happening in here.
It's a very contrite tone throughout. Really, a grim sense of obligation.
Yeah, I mean that is the name of the article.
Yeah, it really is. It's quite.
It's a rhetorical striptease of the highest order.
No, this is the tube site, please.
So if you've seen The Green Mile and it's like, people carrying out the execution of someone they know to be innocent, it's like that a lot.
I mean, it's got the same sort of important heft. The best I can say is that as I was working through that article, I felt pain. And that is normally would be an author's hint, it's time to stop. But to me, it told me that it was time to keep going.
No, it's more like the bit in The Green Mile where Tom Hanks is passing kidney stone.
Yeah, that's actually a better approximation. But hey, if you wanted to see a bunch of Horus photoshops, there's that too. No reading.
Yeah. It's buried.
No reading required. You just look at the pretty pictures. But yeah, this is the fourth one. I'll probably take a little break because the ones that I've got left on the sheet aren't as developed as the ones that I've been running. So I don't have a ton of content to work from. I just have bullet points. So these befuddlingly and wastefully take a very long time to write. Emphasis on wastefully. So I'm not in a position where I'm going to be able to get one out in the next couple days. So it's this one alone took almost
You're going to have to take a break from what I would describe as ostentatious temporal profligacy.
Exactly. There was plans for a Pikmin one to be timely, but no, I'm not going to have that in my soul. I need a gap between. There needs to be an air gap between. A
Pikmin Warriors where you would actually fight against Pikmin would be like some sort of torture for veteran Pikmin players. And you can imagine just that death sound that you live in mortal terror of in the regular game is just like omnipresent all the time.
That was actually part of the joke. So I'm going to traumatize all the Pikmin players. I was going to use the Pikmin video shorts to really drive the knife in too. So, yeah, but I need an air gap. So that'll come later. But, again, emails go to rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. Do we have anything else we want to plug?
No.
Cool. All right. Well, then there's been some negotiation going on what our end music is. So I'm not even sure who to ask at this point.
Oh, well, I'll go and confirm it. I'm going to go with Gil's suggestion for the Sunset Wilds Mario Kart 8 version because I can confirm very, very enjoyable. Like I said, a big upgrade on the original, but, as usual, the brass kind of, takes center stage here, but also, you've got that kind of rustic guitar sound that you've heard, in quite a few of the tracks at this point, like Yoshi Valley and so forth, that just works very well with it. So, yeah, lots of fun. Very, very nice. And unfortunately, a lot of the things I've seen written about the course is the fact that this is a sort of, adaptation of a GBA course that's already been done in Mario Kart Tour. But in Mario Kart Tour, the sun actually sets. Apparently it does
That's
not.
A big change.
In this case, it doesn't indeed. Despite the name of it, at this juncture anyway, the sun is not actually, does not actually set in the Switch version. So this does call back to the Coconut Mall.
I was going to say.
Yeah, that was first implemented in the booster pass. Like the cars on the sort of final bit where you're kind of coming around the back of the parking lot of the mall or whatever. Like you had Shy Guys in cars as obstacles. They were all just static. And, a patch or two later, they started moving. So presumably one day the sun will set on the Sunset Wilds, but for now it doesn't.
I guess these tracks are coming in hot
Yeah, seems that way, doesn't it? Apparently, K-Mech was coming in too hot for the last one as well.
I mean, like, the only thing that Nintendo promised is that they would all be out in 2023, but apparently they're just in a hurry to release these ASAP.
They've got a pace that they're sticking to, and then they'll fix it later, I guess, in some cases.
Yeah.
But it is still has its amusing qualities with the prospect to Shy Guys, as Guillaume already mentioned.
Yeah.
All right. Well, on that, it is time for us to go. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Later.
Bye-bye.